Yes.
All righty, good afternoon. Welcome to Planning, Housing, and Economic Development. Our chair of this committee is delayed and has an excused absence if she's not able to attend. So serving as the vice chair of this committee, I will be leading us today. Can I have a roll call?
Okay. Vice Chair Oriaga,
Here.
Councilmember Adam Stafford,
Present.
Councilmember Denoga,
Present.
Councilmember Olson.
Here.
4 members present at roll call.
Thank you. On our agenda today, we have legislation and budget briefings. The first piece of legislation is CB 23-2026, but I believe we're going to have a motion on that one.
Motion to hold. Second.
Second. That's been properly moved to hold by Councilmember Denoga, seconded by myself. Can I have a roll call?
Oh, that was.
It's okay. Say it again. Aye, but you're just not on the mic. So
Hello?
there you go.
Okay. Vice Chair Oriaga,
Aye.
Councilmember Adam Stafford,
Aye.
Councilmember Denoga,
Aye.
Councilmember Olson.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
All right, thank you. We have two budget briefings today. We're going to start with the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission budget for, let me see, the Parks and Rec section. And so we'll ask those presenters to come forward. We might need Shailene or and some people to, no, I mean, to move down. Yeah. Eric, you can move off so that they can have space. Thank you. Okay. I'll pass it to our committee director to start us off.
Good morning, Chair and members of the PHED Committee. The second item on our agenda today is to discuss the Department of Parks and Recreation's budget. We have Chairman Barnes here. We have the Director of the Parks and Recreation Department, Mr. Darius Stanton, and we have their Capital Budget Manager, Ms. Claire Worshel, here to speak with you. I'll turn it over to Chairman Barnes, and they can start their presentation.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. And for the record, I am Darrell Barnes, Chairman of the Prince George's County Planning Board and the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. I am pleased to join you this morning to present the Commission's proposed FY27 budget for MNC PPC, Department of Parks and Recreation, Prince George's County. I want to thank all the members of the PHED Committee for the opportunity to present to you today. Chair Oriata, Councilmember Adam Stafford, Councilmember Denoga, Councilmember Olson, and Councilmember Burrows. I would like to thank the PHED Committee Director, Raina Hightower, and the rest of the Council County staff for their assistance, advice, and thorough review. Our team meetings with each of you at our office over the past few months, we welcome the opportunity to greet you and share some of the stellar work being done by our award-winning team. and highlight initiatives planned for FY27. At this time, I will turn over the presentation to our Director Darius A. Stanton of the Maryland National Park and Planning Recreation, Prince George's County.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it still morning? Yes, it is. Peace and love. Good morning. How are you all? It is great to be here before the PHED Committee, Vice Chair Oyada, the PHED Committee members. We are, for the record, I'm Darius A. Stanton, the Director of Maryland National Capital Park and Planning, Department of Parks and Recreation, and a resident here of 25 years, coming this June, so a proud taxpayer. I thank you for the opportunity to share our FY27 proposed budget. Our Parks and Recreation is an essential service. We directly support the health, safety, and well-being of our community. We provide safe spaces for physical activity, mental restoration, and social connection, while also serving as critical resources during emergencies. From youth development to senior wellness and parks and recreation programs, strengthening community resilience, improving the quality of life, and ensuring the equitable access to opportunities for all residents. Today, we'll provide a high-level overview of our commission structure, key accomplishments, what's ahead, and the proposed FY27 budget summary. We'll keep the focus on our community impact and what residents receive in services, safety, access, and outcomes. Next slide, please. Most of you are familiar with our department's mission. Our mission anchors everything we do, offering quality programs, facilities, and services that help residents and visitors stay healthy, connected, and engaged as they live more and play more. This budget proposal is how we resource our mission, services, maintenance, activities, and community outcomes. Excuse me. Next slide, please. Here's how the department is structured to deliver on that mission. This slide shows our leadership structure, our operational and administrative service delivery function aligned under the director. We organize around core responsibilities: public safety and parks maintenance, recreation and leisure services, and administrative and financial support. This structure supports fast coordination across divisions, especially in peak seasons and emergencies. This slide is a quick at a glance of our system. With 370 parks, facilities, and sites, amenities that serve residents across the county. We manage a diverse portfolio, providing programs and essential services that touch on the daily lives of our communities in many ways. I want you to think also about what we're currently on par for doing this summer. Our Make a Splash in School, free water, safety, and intro to swimming skills for second graders in the Prince George's County Public School System will commence again this summer. Last summer, we served 46 schools, and again this year, 2,515 students. As you know, African-American youth lead the nation disproportionately in drowning, and we're working to increase those numbers every day. Our 2026 summer day camps, we offer 630 camps. Currently, our capacity is at 91%, 11,528 camp and extended care registrations to date. Our safe summer and evening program sites, focusing on making sure we have a pro-peace throughout the summer and the year, include programs and offered at different sites, 10 northern county sites and 12 southern county sites. Next slide, please. Thank you. Our festival and special events reflect the communities we serve, seasonal traditions, cultural celebrations throughout the year. This year, we're focused on pro-peace. Throughout our festivals and our events, we will be continuing to work to include educational entertainment in various forms as themes throughout our events. The purpose behind that is because we recognize that a healthy mindset and a healthy activity in our lives will decrease the instances we have of violence in our communities, the domestic violence that we have at one point where we led the state in domestic violence homicides. And these events will drive engagement, belonging, economic activity, and bringing families into our parks and venues. Next slide, please. None of this happens alone. As well as yourselves and the partnerships that we have throughout your districts, we also partner with over 200 strategic partners, helping us deliver programs, events, stewardship, and community support. One of the examples of that is we are on par to develop a human service capital plan that is focusing on care, where our planning department focuses on infrastructure, residential, and housing, commercial lands, and building. We're focused on families, on human development. And in doing that, our human service master plan will focus bringing our strategic partners together and being intentional about those partnerships. As an example, in the summer, we're working with the Prince George's County Public School System to be able to provide our students with programming that will help them increase or decrease, I should say, summer learning loss. Where in most cases, students who do not get engaged in the summer with the provided programming that is given to them by schools or not going to summer school, those students would often not have that engagement in math, reading, science, and information technology. But in a partnership that we're working on with the public school system, we will indeed be able to provide that for our young people. Next slide, please. Our FY27 focus areas centers around outcomes where residents feel inclusive, equitable, stronger community impact, high level of customer service, wellness, climate action, and enterprise improvement. These focus areas guide where we invest our programming, access, facilities, communications, and operational effectiveness. We were honored and recognized as a finalist for the National Gold Medal Award for Excellence in Parks and Recreation Management for the 8th time at the 2025 NRPA Annual Conference. We achieved a CAPRA reaccreditation with 100% compliance across 154 standards, demonstrating consistent, measurable operational excellence. Our park police earned the CALIA reaccreditation and the Meritorious Award for 28 consecutive years of accreditation. We also received the 2026 Casey Trees Canopy Award for leadership in urban forestry and sustainability. Next slide, please. In FY26, the department reinvested $82 million in capital improvement projects. We completed major improvements to playgrounds, field upgrades, pavilion replacements, ADA upgrades, historical site renovations and acquisitions. We also renovated 18 athletic fields to support safe, high-quality recreation. And we invite you to visit our new state-of-the-art performance training center at the Prince George's Stadium, where our young people, in lieu of the baseball season with the Bay Sox, will have first-class access to this world-class facility. Next slide, please. We expanded access and inclusion across programs and digital services. In a survey conducted regarding our brand, 66% of surveyed residents rated our services as very or most equitable and accessible. We're continuing to work on our compliance preparation for ADA Title II digital accessibility through disability support services, where we delivered 30,000 plus assistance hours to thousands of individuals and trained 2,000 plus staff. This is what equity looks like in practice, removing barriers so all residents can benefit. Next slide, please. To serve residents effectively, we also strengthen how we communicate and connect. Residents learn more about our offerings through your guide, email newsletters, and website. We completed a UCAS needs assessment across 9 locations, confirming 90% of internal communications occurs in teams and redefining a roadmap. We gathered 3,000 survey responses to inform branding and improve how residents experience our services. Our outreach grows with 6.6 million impressions, 2,915 media mentions, and 82,612 followers across platforms. Newsletters subscribers increased by 10,200. Next slide, please. The department advanced connectivity and trail improvements, coordinating on the Maryland 210 Phase 1 project and moving 20-plus miles of paving and repairs forward. We inspected 40 miles of cycling trails and completed stripping, bridge replacements, and boardwalk renovations. We acquired 9 acres at Huntington Local Park, protecting resources and expanding parkland. And we continue to strengthen stewardship partnerships like invasive ivy removal and tree care work with our community partners. This slide highlights the scale and reach of our programming. We offered over 11,500 programs in FY25, serving more than 120 participants through course enrollments alone. Our top 5 areas: aquatics, fitness, sports, day camps, and performing arts, reflecting the diversity of what residents want and need. We're not a one-dimensional system, as you know. We serve the whole person, from physical health to creative expression. Children ages 6 through 12 are our largest participant group, followed by mixed age and adult programs. This tells us families are relying on us, and so are our seniors and preschoolers. We're truly multi-generational. The demand speaks for itself. 11,000 plus summer camp and extended care registrations on day 1, as I mentioned earlier, with staff handling over 96 customer interactions just for summer camp registration in 2026. That's a sign of trust. Families count on us for safe, quality programming every year. As an example, we've listened to much of what you said over the past year, and we have extended and altered our day camp registration. In past years, it was during the week at 9 a.m. So parents had a very difficult time trying to pull over on the side of the road or sneak into a bathroom to work and register their children. However, as advice to the council, we moved that day to Saturday morning, and it made a tremendous difference in our parents being able to register. Data analysis show that youth are the primary driver of our engagement. Over half active participants are ages 5 to 19 years old. The strongest youth engagement comes from ages 10 to 14 and 15 to 19, and youth programming supports household participation overall. I mentioned being earlier about an essential service. Late last year, we had a youth that was running from 4 armed gunmen in the Palmer Park community. It was a Friday night, and fortunately, our Palmer Park facility is one of our teen night programs. The young person knew it was there because he's a participant in that program, and he was running from 4 armed gunmen. He went to the door, got in the door, the facility staff locked the facility down, brought him in, and the gunman actually shot in the back of the building. I mention it because of the fact that I've talked about us being an essential service. These are some of the type of essential services that we're providing, a safe space for our young people, and especially some of our most vulnerable teen populations. Investing in safe spaces, quality programs, and customer experience matter because they ripple across our families. Our patrons express how important the department's programming builds connection and community. Next slide, please. About 2/3 of our survey respondents were 55 plus. The largest group was 65 to 74 years old. Over a third reported participating in senior programs, and seniors outperform other age groups in facility engagement. This validates focus on senior wellness, social connection, and accessible facilities. And not only are they engaged, but they're vibrant. At our 900 attended senior line dance that happens every year at Moss and Crosswinds, at 7:45, the line was around the corner, and by 9 a.m., those seniors were in the building. 9:15, they were seated and eating breakfast, and at 9:45, they were on the floor with their fans shouting, "Where are those fans?" Or better, should I say, excuse my English, where them fans at? Next slide, please. We are essential service to our community doing weather-related events. We actively, quickly, with our county partners, Park Police, Homeland Security, and the National Guard during the snowstorm Fern, the partnership that we had under the leadership of the county executive and the council, bringing all of these bodies to bear, were able to literally crack ice, shovel snow, clear roads. We coordinated road clearing warming shelters in the middle of the night. Our staff got up at 12 in the morning and went to how to facilitate and stand up these warming centers. In the past, we would not have been doing this because normally our facilities don't open when we're not open. But we decided to make sure we open those facilities. And now we're facilitating a partnership with the Department of Social Services. So they're not just warming centers, but they're emergency centers. And those emergency centers are open so that our staff, our community, have a safe place to go in troubled times. We deployed 27 staff per shift, cleared 95% of the sidewalks by February 6th, and opened 3 warming centers, including one that was 24/7. Next slide, please. This is an example of the kinds of service standard we aim for: responsive, clear, and supportive when residents and partners need help navigating processes. Our FY27 focus areas center around outcomes residents feel: inclusivity, equity, strong community impact, customer service, wellness, climate action, and enterprise improvement. These focus areas guide where we invest, our programming, our access, our facilities, our communications, and our operational effectiveness. One of the key focus areas that I want to bring our attention to is our enterprising, recognizing the fact that we work with a large part of our vulnerable population as youth and seniors. As you know, our seniors are able to receive their senior card and access our facilities for free. Our youth at the same level, up until the age of 17, also are able to utilize our services for free. The population, in between that, if they want to work out in our world-class facilities, is $185 for anyone who wants to come and work out in those facilities when those operations are open. So for an entire year and $185, and of course, their tax dollars, they're able to participate in these programs. And so we're looking to see where our programming across the board creates a standard of excellence, and we're now developing a compliance measurement that would allow us to see across the board who's utilizing our facility, when it's being utilized, the quality, the objectives are being met. And we've heard previous Chair Burrows, in questioning, where are the numbers in terms of some of our facilities and some being more utilized than others, and making sure that we create a dynamic that we can see at a glance where that is. Some of the dashboards and efficiencies that we've created under our new financial management division, led by Mr. Bobby Enoch, our new budget manager, our assistant budget manager, Ms. Jennifer Roundtree, 2 former financial executives in the federal government who were fortunately able to come a part of our team, Ms. Claire Werschel, who is our CIP budget manager, and our new, basically brand new budget team. As a result of that, this is the first time this team has presented and prepared a budget for the council. So we're very fortunate to have the support of Ms. Rayner, as well as Mr. Eric Irvin and the rest of the county council's team, because they allowed us some support in correcting errors that we may have presented earlier that we did not catch. It was our very first time, but we've worked diligently, and we will continue to make sure that we prepare ourselves for the future. A look ahead. We'll expand patron access beyond insights from the branding study that we're currently wrapping up so residents can find services more easily. We just finished 8 focus groups throughout the county of residents to tell us how they're accessing our information, how they're finding out about our programs, where that's transpiring. So we'll enhance our ADA and code compliance across the department's websites and facilities for access. Currently, our goal through state mandate is 85%. We're at 81%, 80% right now. We'll complete 44 additional CIP projects, launch the Human Services Care Plan, and update our Formula 2040 plan. We'll also grow pickleball programming and continue to reach out to ensure the survey insights that reflect the full working age community. Our summer programming will be safe summer programming will be a year-round concept called Pro Peace, and Pro Peace just focuses on our ability to promote peace, not necessarily looking for violence, but giving young people, our adults, our families, a focus on peace, but also promoting professionalism in all assets and fields so that we become the destination for the nation. We'll continue engagement with communities like Walker Mill and celebrate milestone events like the Festival of Lights anniversary and our commission centennial. We are now in our 99th year as a commission. Next year, we'll be celebrating 100 years. And actually, the Department of Parks and Recreation joined the commission in 1970. So we are coming up on 56 years as part of the commission, which is very important for us because we have received consistent clean audits. We also have an award-winning finance department to ensure that the resources that we are entrusted to by our county residents are not only taken care of, but are managed in a very thorough and appropriate fashion. We'll continue to make progress on major infrastructure reassessments and capital projects, including the Good Luck Community Center, the Sports and Learning Competition Pool. We'll expand community conversations to gain feedback on programs and services and expand our outreach to underrepresented groups. As we continue to see issues around the region and even in our county with young people and violence, we want to make sure that we have boots on the ground, that we have community directors and facilities working with our partnerships with our public schools, making sure that our grassroots organizations are engaged with us so that we can, and our young people, through the chairs, youth advisory panel, as well as our teen arts council. We're working with them to help develop programs that we make sure that we're not just developing programs for young people that we think as an award-winning organization that makes sense for us, but programming that is directed and guided by what it is that young people want to see. Now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Claire Werschel, our capital budget manager, who will provide a high-level summary of the department's program budget.
All right. Thank you, Director Stanton. For the record, my name is Claire Werschel, and I am the capital budget manager for the department, but today I am presenting the operating budget to you. Everything you've heard today is supported by an operating budget of $415.9 million. Our department's tax rate is 29.4 cents on real property, which generated $348 million this year. To cover the difference, we rely on our fund balance, revenue from sales charges for services and rentals. This slide displays the proposed budget totals by fund and includes the required reserve funds for the Park Fund and the Recreation Fund. The Park Fund pays for staff salaries, benefits, programs, maintenance, and administrative functions related to our vast system of park properties and is the bulk of our operating budget. The Recreation Fund pays for those same staff salaries, benefits, programs, maintenance, and administrative functions related to recreation, such as our community centers, our aquatic facilities, and youth sports. The Enterprise Fund is for programs and facilities that are envisioned to be self-sustaining, such as ice rinks and golf courses. Next slide, please. Of our $415.9 million operating budget, over half supports our staff. We employ over 1,300 full-time and over 4,500 seasonal team members, and retention is a top priority. We achieve this by offering a competitive benefits package, and you'll meet many staff who have been with the Commission for 20, 30, or even more years. Our capital budget is funded through the operating budget and makes up 12% of our total. The remaining 31% supports our programs and maintenance, ensuring high-quality services and well-cared-for facilities for our community. Next slide, please. This table summarizes the proposed FY27 change over the FY26 adjusted adopted budget for Prince George's Parks, Recreation, and Enterprise funds, which you will see as a 5% or $22 million decrease. $20 million of that represents funding that was moved into the budget in October 2025 for the replacement of the Temple Hills Community Center, which was a one-time transfer. Last year, $20 million was transferred from the Rec Fund to the CIP. This year, it's only $10 million from the Rec Fund. Instead, we are transferring $10 million from the Admin Fund for the construction of the Walker Mill Park Police facility. In addition to 13 new positions, the increase in personnel is due to the fact that seasonal aquatic staff was inadvertently omitted from the budget last year. This budget restores that funding. Other operating budget impacts include opening of the Cross Creek Pool, increases in utility costs and benefits, increases related to sustainability requirements like stormwater BMPs, and one-time expenses like migration to our telephone system to a cloud-based system and the upgrade of our Chronos time clocks. These operational impacts are accompanied by the changes in CIP transfer and restoring the project charge funding to FY26 proposed budget levels. Next slide, please. This slide displays the proposed new positions for FY27, an increase in 13 positions total. The Wellness and Life Skills Integrator positions were term positions added to the Director's Office in FY26. This year, we are proposing converting these positions to merit positions. The Chief of Staff position is a new position in the Director's Office, and the Admin Specialist position will support the recreation of the Parks and Recreation Foundation, and this is moving a current term contract position to a merit position. Park Police has requested 6 additional positions. The 3 public safety aides will provide security for the Largo headquarters building and help us move away from services that are currently contracted out. The 2 security techs will help reduce the cost of labor for security system installs, which we also currently outsource. And the administrative assistant will provide budget support for Park Police. Each Parks division has requested an additional mechanic to maintain the large fleet of vehicles and get them back into service faster. And finally, the Arts and Cultural Heritage Division is requesting an additional maintenance worker to support the Prince George's Equestrian Center and the Washington International Horse Show. There have been discussions about our current vacancy rate. Our vacancy rate does not fluctuate much because we tend to promote from within, which keeps our vacancy rate status, but helps with staff retention. Of the around 123 current vacant positions, only 10 are not in active recruitment. Those 10 are hard to fill positions and positions we are currently leaving vacant until the end of term contracts. While we have requested these positions, if council deems that they cannot support the new positions in this cycle, we will accommodate within the current work program. This concludes our presentation of the FY26 operating budget for the Department of Parks and Recreation. We request your approval of our budget so that we may continue to offer first-class parks and recreation services to the residents. And I will now turn it back over to the director and the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Worcel. As Ms. Worcel said, our focus this year is we did come in with the determination of not increasing our budget from FY25, just being prudent with regard to what's transpiring in our economic environment. One of the things that mentioned in terms of the staffing and positions we requested was because of the unique alignment of our budget. Most organizations, agencies, or departments are under an operating budget and a capital budget. In our case, we have 18 different divisions. Out of those 18 different divisions and our staff, we have a park fund, a recreation fund, and an enterprise fund. And those positions come out of those various funds. And so in some instances, even though we may have opportunities to move folks within those funds, some of these roles are impacted by that. So it makes it a little more complicated than a traditional just OpEx and a CapEx budget. But we are really excited about the opportunity to present, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for your presentation. So today, we want to do a few things. One, we're going to open the floor for my council members to have questions about the budget and questions about the current state of affairs for park and planning. And there seems also to be a great deal of confusion. And so our hope is that we can start to unpack that confusion here today. I'm going to start with Chair Emeritus, Councilmember Burrows.
Thank you so much and welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. I'd first like to start out by acknowledging some of the improvements that you've made uh, regarding, I guess maybe the elephant in the room is the project charge process. Can you talk about some of those improvements, and can you also at least touch on, to some degree, the 7 dimensions of well-being, that standard that you've moved to?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, first of all, Chair Burrows, for first, working with us and our team. And, there were a lot of highlights, things that were brought to our attention as we came in as an administration with regard to the project charge process. One, in fact, just being the fact we did not have a formal process within the organization. And fortunately, with the support of our corporate administrative services, Mr. Enoch and his team, we developed a directive that now outlines what the process looks like, how we manage it, how we track it. To date, we now provide the council with, as from I believe a December meeting that we had with yourself and Chair Oada, a complete report that outlines the status of where project charges are. So that includes who's contracted, what reimbursements have been made, if there are holdups with regard to those services being provided or those contracts being implemented, what paperwork or things are missing, so that we'd have a clear, transparent process and everybody would at least understand where we are. In addition to that, to your point, one of the things that was a challenge for us as an organization was there were different perceptions of what scopes of services, what aligned with our parks and recreation, and of course our services. And of course, in our organization, we are established as a result of the land use articles from the state legislature. And that is the park fund and those programming tied to park, those programs tied to our rec fund. And so as a result of that, what we did was go to the certifying body of Parks and Recreations for us, which is the National Recreation and Parks Association. And that allowed us for our staff, our finance staff, our legal team, our executive team at the corporate headquarters to be able to then look at, and everybody, including our community and the nonprofits who do a lot of wonderful work in our community, to be able to be really clear about what it is. And so some of those 7 dimensions of wellness include mental health and economic stability, physical health, social engagement. And so we wanted to make sure that we did not have a lot of questions around scopes, because that was a real bone of contention, if you will. And it was quite frankly, not balanced. And so at this juncture,
What do you mean by not balanced?
I mean, not balanced in the fact that there were instances where you could see scopes at some point were approved and other scopes weren't, and they were still very similar, right? But that was because we didn't really have a process, admittedly, in place. And so, fortunately, under our administration, we recognized that that was a deficit. It was brought to our attention by yourself and others. We recognized it inside, and so we decided to put a directive in place so that we could manage it and be accountable to what it is that we said was programming. But for our programs, the nonprofits in our communities that do, phenomenal work, we serve hundreds of thousands of people. But there are a lot of communities that are doing, programs, the Boys and Girls Clubs. I could go on and on. But in those services, we wanted to make sure that it was clear for them to be able to address what scopes and services they could provide, because in our process, we're held to reimburse and not grant upfront. And we wanted to make sure that organizations had an opportunity to know what it was that they could spend upfront, and instead of spending money and then not being able to be reimbursed because it did not match the scope. So it was important for us to use something that was clarified by a certifying body that we use as recreation parks. And if we can use it as recreation parks, then our organizations that are appropriated funds through the project charge process would be able to do so as well.
I think that's going to make a world of difference. And I do want to applaud you and your team for that. Because as you said, without a doubt, there was disparate treatment. And it's important that we have a single standard, that we all know where the goalpost is. So I appreciate that. I know one of the things that we also talked about a few months ago is the importance of after-school programs, weekend programs, the workshops, community service, travel for young people, especially young people in poverty, both locally and globally. And I know at the time, park and planning didn't have a policy in place for the global. Can you talk about your work around that?
Sure. Currently, one of the things I'd like to highlight, I have to take the opportunity to highlight, is the fact that we have for 53 years, I believe, instituted a disability services unit, which is one of the few in the state and throughout the country that is singularly focused on providing services for youth and adults. We have youth summer camps that are provided for disabled young people, as well as with adults with disabilities. Excuse me. And in some of those cases, those adults actually take an annual field trip in that program, which is done throughout here in the country. But we also have a number of programs where young people travel along with them. And we talked earlier about the international capability of doing that. And so we did some research with our legal team. And the Prince George's County Public Schools has a phenomenal program that they did a great deal of work to institute. And they have a formal policy on the books that addresses international travel. And so internally, we started to look into that process as well, so that we could create a dynamic for our young people to be able to travel internationally, because we recognize the value of young people, especially those from disadvantaged circumstances, being able to be given an opportunity to travel abroad, having a passport. We have a passport program right now within the county, but we want our young people to see beyond the scopes. And I mentioned the Pro Peace program. We want our young people to see no limits. We want them to see no limits, but we also want them to understand the value of being able to go beyond their borders. And so as a result of that, we're looking to create a dynamic for our young people to travel abroad as well.
Okay. No, I appreciate that. And I know, January, you had started that process, and by, I think, a year's time, you were thinking that you would have those policies in place.
We're working on that now.
And this came up for me because I was particularly interested in taking our SLA on a cultural excursion to Costa Rica. And I know that you were working to get the policies in place for next year. In the meantime, I did have a conversation with you, Chairman Barnes, to come up with a solution for this. And the solution that you advised me of, do you remember that solution?
In regards to your project charge?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember.
Could you articulate what you advised me to do?
Yeah, it was based on the fact that Chairwoman had project charge money that she had said that was taking too long to get processed. You remember that?
Yes.
So part of that conversation was, how do we speed up the process for yourself?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
So I said, being that we were trying to speed up the process for the Chairwoman, to include your project charge money with hers.
In the transfer.
That's correct. Remember that?
Yes.
Right. So part of that was, how do we speed up the process because it was taking too long, and that there were subsequent meetings that was being held when we did the meetings at my building, when we met with you all individually. Remember that?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Darius, what was those conversations? Do you remember
I
that?
just want to make sure, for clarity, that we don't lose the point on this, for Councilmember Burrows, that you were asked to transfer the money so that, because park and planning at that time was not able to move forward. And so the transfer that you requested was at the advisement of the chairman and his team?
Just the chairman.
Just the
Right,
chairman.
so they did.
Oh. So just the chairman. Thank you.
Can I finish now?
Yes, please.
Okay. So part of the process was to speed up the process. Is that correct?
Yes. No.
So I just want to be clear because I'm seeing where this is going. So I want to make sure that we are articulating exactly what transpired in a way so not only do I understand and you understand on where we are today. The process was there was no lack in time with your project charges. Okay. There was no lack in time in your project charges. We were trying to speed up that process and then include those processes or reimbursements with the chairwoman at that time. And that's what happened.
Yeah, just from my recollection,
Yeah.
and I agree with everything that you're saying right now, and I appreciate you having the integrity to say what you're saying. My recollection is that there was a piece of legislation coming down with groups on a list. Because a group of project charges in my area were not going to be implemented, you advised me to tack my project charges on to the chair's bill, and I did. Is that to transfer that to the council? 'Cause
That's
that's what her piece of legislation did.
correct.
Right.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to lay that foundation because, it's so odd in this building, as I'm sure it is in yours, as I'm sure it is in Annapolis.
Sure.
Everyone is telling somebody something different. And I'm like, wait, no, I had a conversation with the chair and he asked me to do this transfer, which is why I did it. Because I didn't want to do it, if you remember that.
But the conversation was, for me, that I can recall, was there was a process already in place that the director had for project charges,
Right.
correct?
Yes, sir.
So part of that conversation was with the chairwoman and her project charges because she was frustrated that the movement wasn't happening quickly enough.
Right.
Right? So part of that was, being that we were trying to expedite her project charges, it made sense at the time, was to add yours to hers in order to speed up the process.
No,
And I just want to clarify. My frustration, since we're talking about my project charges for my district, was not that they weren't moving just timely, that this has been a historical issue that we brought up year after year, where certain districts, they don't move at all. It's not slowly. It's they don't move at all. And what happens is that the money doesn't magically roll over. Every year when we work together, a council member is then going to be forced to advocate and push and negotiate to get their community priorities back on the list. And so what has happened is that historically, specifically in District 7, we have not gotten any resources, almost zero resources. And so it wasn't about it's not moving quickly enough. There is a systematic, under-resourced, intentional to me thing happening, specifically in the southern part of the county and particularly in District 7. And so what I'm accountable for and with the responsibility of every council member as the elected body who governs you all when it comes to your budget, right? It's our responsibility to decide what you all do in your budget. It's our responsibility to decide the projects, how you spend them, how it's allocated. That's our responsibility in this seat. And so when we pass a budget and it's passed through the budget process, and year after year, it's not actualized. And it's only not actualized for certain communities. And we can argue the communities that need it the most. It's a responsibility for us to take action to rectify it. So I don't want it to be trivialized as not fast enough. It has been a constant disinvestment, under-resourced, spent in District 7 in the southern part of the county by parking planning and other agencies. We talk about it on the dais constantly. And I'm accountable to stopping it while I'm in this seat. And every budget cycle and every year, we're here and it's the same argument. Why is our community not getting what they're supposed to get? Why are they not getting it in a timely manner? And what also happened in the budget process originally, in the FY26 budget process, was an agreement to try a different option, which is why there was an original line item for a pilot program for the council and the county side to run project charges to see if it ran faster based on complaints or issues you all had about staffing. So this was not a thing that wasn't discussed publicly, that was not voted on in the budget, and everything that was transferred was either by request from you all or from direct communication that those funds would have been lost and not actualized in communities that need it the most. And so I don't want to lose that point. And people can say whatever they want to say about me, but I will always fight for the residents of District 7. I will never let a budget cycle go and my district gets the short end of the stick. It'll never happen. And I have a few questions. I want to start with, and if you don't have a copy of it, I'll give you a copy of the, and for my colleagues, we're looking at CR1 2026. And just yes or no, just for time's sake. Can you confirm that the funds that are in question in this resolution were a part of the original budget that was passed in FY26? That it's not any additional funds? This is CR16. You can skip the first page, go back to the columns on page 2 and 3, and you'll see that it's a direct line item of the exact dollar amount that was approved in FY26. Would you agree that that's not additional dollars? It was the original dollar amount that was passed in the FY26 budget?
If you don't mind, I'm gonna take a moment. I want to make sure. When it comes to numbers, I like to take my time. What it appears,
Okay, I'll give you a second to read that, which I hope you guys read it originally when it came down, CR1 2026.
would you happen to have
if-
another copy, please? Excuse me. I
Sure.
apologize. Yeah, pass that to Mr. Enoch.
So I'll skip then. Well, actually, no, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna let you read it.
Thank you.
So the question is, are there any additional funds that were added to that? Or is it exactly line for line what was existing in the budget that passed in FY26.
So based on what I see, and Mr. Enoch is here as well, who manages our project charge process.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. So you can confirm that there were no additional funds added. These are just existing funds, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And then also, isn't it true that the funds, because we talked about it, we had a
I'm
working
sorry, I didn't
MOU.
hear you.
Isn't it true that these funds, because we've met multiple times, had working documentation that these funds are not used for, in this resolution in front of you, intended for county staff, salaries, internal operations, but were based on giving the community programs the funding through the county government? Yes or no?
From what I can see, yes.
Okay. So I just want to make sure we orient ourselves to this first idea of like establishing the record. To the county councilmember Burrow's point, that the funding that was transferred was done a substantial amount at the request of the chairman, that in no way did it increase the budget, and that none of those dollars have any intention to be used on salary, staffing, or for the county council, but only in alignment with what was already agreed in the FY26 budget, where we have a signed MOU by your staff for the pilot program, to allow those organizations to go to the organizations, those funds to go to the organizations that were listed and passed in the FY26 budget. Now, the Councilmember Burrows hit on this a little bit, but I want to just make sure that we drive this home. Would you agree that these programs historically have been used to would you say that these programs are used to support park and planning recreational services over the last 2 decades that it's existed, that these programs and these organizations are given funding for recreational programs to increase the services to the residents? Like, that's the intent of project charges.
I can't speak to 20 years. I can speak
Okay.
to what I.
That's fine. So
Yeah.
you don't know. So we could go back and look at the project charges over the last 20 years, the organizations, the reimbursements, because everything's a reimbursement, correct?
That's correct.
So every time a dollar spent, you all review it.
Correct.
So even before you got here, we could assume that the people before you read it to assume it aligned with recreational uses before they disperse funds.
I wouldn't make that assumption because I wasn't here, so I
So
can't.
it could have been
testify to that.
flawed. They could have reimbursed
I can't speak to
her.
that.
Understood. And let's talk a little bit about the process failures, because you talked a little bit about that. Can you identify on average how long when you were doing these surveys or conversations with different groups, did you guys understand how long it took an average organization to get through the scope and reimbursement process?
The focus groups that I've referenced were primarily around our brand, marketing, programming, things of that nature. The focus groups were not around project charges.
I'm sorry, I thought when we had met before, you guys had mentioned that you guys were going to talk to the organizations that have historically been in the process to learn the issues and figuring out how to fix the process.
In
Did
FY,
those conversations not happen? I could be mistaken, and maybe you planned to, but they didn't happen.
no, well, let me clarify the point. In FY25 and previous years, my understanding is there's generally a project charge meeting with the potential recipients. And in FY25, there was not a project charge meeting held. However, when we came in July, we held in the fall, late summer, a project charge meeting with potential recipients, both two dates. One was online. I mean, they were
And
both virtual.
I'm sorry,
and online.
I don't want to get too lost in the weeds of it. If it's okay if the answer is you just don't know what the average wait time is, that's fine. Because I just want to move on to something else
Okay,
if you're not
just,
sure.
If you allow me, I just want to fully answer your question. I won't take long.
So you do know the average wait time?
No, I don't know the average wait
Okay.
time for the past years. We're
So then
calculating
I
that
want to
right
move
now.
on to something else. So is it true that some organizations from the last fiscal year are currently now still getting reimbursements from FY25?
That is correct.
Okay. So what we could piece together, because these are reimbursable, we talked about this, right? So these organizations, they go out, they spend the money to do the services in the community, and there's a promise that happens that it will be reimbursed. But what is historically happening, it's a year later, those nonprofit organizations now have spent that money and they still have not received the reimbursements. So we can see how that could be really damaging to a lot of organizations because there's an agreement that's happening between the government and these entities. The scopes are signed, they're doing the work, and some of them are now in the queue again for the next fiscal year. But they can go 2 years into doing work and not have received not a dollar of reimbursement back. So I just want to make sure we're not losing that point here. And isn't it true that some of these organizations may never see reimbursements? Because we've had, and if you don't know the answer to this, maybe I don't know if there's anyone that's been working since last budget cycle. For reference, historically, people got signed scopes, submitted reimbursements, and then never got funding back.
Well, let me address a few things that you said, if I may.
I just wanted you to address that question, then we'll move on.
But you're asking me questions. I'd like to have an opportunity to address it so we can get some clarity to what you're saying.
If you want like a closing statement on things, but certain things I want.
Okay, well, I'll allow
I
you.
want a direct answer to that question, right? And
Would you repeat the
yeah,
question,
so
please? Thank
isn't it true that some organizations can never receive a reimbursement, that they get assigned scope and they never actually get a reimbursement after spending down? Now, if you don't know that because you're new, then that's fine. I can move on to something else.
Yeah, you can move on.
Okay. So just to educate you, since I know you're new, that was an issue that was brought up last year and is an issue of our concern this year, is that there are organizations that get signed scopes, they do the work, and they never receive the money back, even though they had an agreed scope that was signed by them and Park and Planning. And so that creates a huge disadvantage for those organizations and entities. And I'm sure you know that we've raised these concerns to you both about the discrepancies in equity and delays in times. You would say that we've exhaustively brought that to you and Darius and
And if I may, I know that since we have been here, based off of the comment that Councilmember Burrows already alluded to, that we have already started to look at project charges as a whole and to try to rectify some of the wrongs of the past, to the point of making sure that project charges, to ensure that those that are asking for project charges have the necessary paperwork, that they have their letters of good standing, so on and so forth, to help speed up that process.
And I appreciate that
Yeah.
that process might be getting better for Councilman Burrows, and it's always been better for some of my colleagues in the North Central part of the county. But there's a reality that there's 9 districts,
Sure.
and it's not working until every resident, no matter where you live in Prince George's County, has the same access. And so I just have to be honest, it's not working for my residents, and it's not working for my community. And it historically has not worked
If you
for
can
my
provide
residents
us with a
and
list
for
of those
my communities.
individuals that do not have or have not received their reimbursements, then we can look into it.
I appreciate it. Now, are you aware that the southern region of the county has historically received a disproportionately lower share of the project charges? And again, it could be you're not aware.
Did you say historically? Yeah, I can't speak to that historically without
Okay.
some empirical data.
No, I appreciate it. Could I have the team, if we have an analysis, I would like to go to page 4. If you guys could bring up that analysis that was done for the county council. Okay. So we'll just go through some analysis just so that we can all be oriented to some of the historic reference of the disadvantage that, oh, yes, go ahead, Councilmember Burrows.
Just, Ariane, could you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. Ariane Alvear, Director of Legislative Impact for the County Council.
And you compose these charts, is that right?
Yes.
And is this specific to the recreation fund, or is this project charges across the board to include the admin fund and the park fund?
I believe this is across the board, I want to say.
Okay. All right.
If I may, we never received these charts, so it would have been helpful, so we would have been better prepared to give you the response. I just wanted.
Oh, I'll make sure you get them.
Okay.
And then Ariane, when I see a north, central, and south here, is north districts 1, 2, and 3, and then south 4, 5, and 6, and then no, central is 4, 5, and 6, and then south 7, 8, 9?
Correct.
Okay.
And can you put it back on the screen for us? And thank you to our policy team for putting this together. And we could definitely share it with you. But I do hope that you all also do these types of analysis in-house, because this is data that we got from you all that we use to put this together. So let's look at FY27, right? So you can see that 41 and 53%, right, is the north and central, the 5% in the south in FY27. And
Excuse me,
let's go.
what is this reimbursements or appropriation?
This is both.
Okay.
This is both.
Because I can't
And,
see that. What you read.
So if you look at the bottom chart, the bottom pie graph, that's what's dispersed. And if you look at the top, it's requests. And so we're going to go through, I'm going to focus on dispersed for time, unless my colleagues want to focus on the other, as we go from slide to slide. So in FY17, you're talking about $112,500 to over $1 million in central, over 800,000 in north, making the contribution in the south 5.5%. Let's move to 28. So when we look at 28,
Can you share what you're looking at so we can see it? I can't see that. It'd be helpful. Please.
and I hope that, I don't know who does your data.
Thank you.
Slides bigger?
Can you make it bigger on your end?
We have a
I'm
copy.
sorry.
Okay.
We're now on page, we're now here.
Okay.
Thank you. And so on the FY 2028, I'm sorry, thank you, 2018, you're looking at again about $1 million central, over 800,000 in the north, still around 100 and plus thousand in the south, making it 5.6% of what, sorry. Oh, the slide didn't progress to 2018. Okay. Disbursement in 2018. Now this goes on to stay around 5% in 2019. It jumps down to 3.9% disbursement in 2020, where, for example, other districts had, 2020 had 50.6% and 42.3% of the funding allocated to them, and then they received 52.5% and 43.6% of the distributed funds. And I want to, and I'll just keep going, I guess, since it makes sure it's historical in nature. You'll see the same numbers in FY 2021, where it's 3.3% distributed to the South. We'll go to 2022, where we see a little bit of an increase at 6.9%, but again, 51.7 and 41.4 go respectively to the north and central part of the county.
If I may,
And then,
I have a question about this slide of 2022.
okay.
So just first, just to make it, I think, to your point, really clear on the baseline here.
Yep.
The appropriations are made by the county council.
Oh, 100%.
So it's the county council that.
Oh,
that's
100%. I agree.
Right, yeah.
It has historically not been the best people representing the south part of the county and allocating the resources to their community. And then by default, the agencies have, I guess, heard that in a way of not actually allocating the resources to the south part of the county. And so it's a new dynamic where, and we'll see it as we get through, where you'll see substantially the ask has increased in the south part of the county. When you started getting representation that paid attention to the numbers and where they were going, and paid attention to how the North County had 20 years of allocation, and Central, where districts like District 7, 8, and 9 historically were not seeing that level of investment. And so what we did is say, our communities deserve, we're not going to cut the north part of the county. They do great work. We're not going to cut the resources from those amazing organizations giving direct services to their residents. We're just saying we deserve that same type of resources in District 7, 8, and 9. And I'm so glad you caught that, because then what happened is we said we want resources too. And then what happened is the other side said no. So when we asked for the same treatment, what happened is the door was shut on the organizations and the programs and the services in District 7, 8, and 9. Wow. The northern part and the central part of the county got to continue getting their services. And we'll see that in the charts as we move forward. But thank you. That's such a great point, and it drives it home.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's go to, let's see here. Let's jump to 24, FY 2024. Because as you know, those years were years that maybe myself and Councilmember Burrows didn't have an opportunity to put in requests for our communities. And so you see an increase of requests that happened in the southern part of the county in FY 24. Still less than what you'll see in central part of the county. So we're at 38.4%. requests, and Central's at 47%, and then the North pretty much stayed at their same allocation. But then let's get to the,
I just want
the,
quick,
the,
if I may.
can I finish this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then let's look at the funds dispersed. So while the north part of the county, even though they asked for less, they are almost 100% reimbursement of their $1 million request.
Yeah, I was
And-
gonna ask what I was gonna ask you about, because I noticed in FY22, it says that the North was appropriated 39%, but actually received 41%. And then in the
No,
20,
it's looking at the percentage of their reimbursement. So it's based on their
lower,
request.
on the lower,
Mhm.
right?
So-
But it appears that there was an increase here.
I could speak to that.
Okay, thanks.
So this is a division of the total share. So out of all that was dispersed, the North received 41.4% of the 100% dispersed.
Thank you for the
Yeah.
clarity.
So they're getting more of what is dispersed, even though they're requesting less than every other district and every other part of the county. They're still getting more money allocated to them. So we're clear on that. And so while we had an increase when we came into serving of the request, we still looked at 23.1% of the reimbursement, not even hitting $1 million of the reimbursement. And so when I talk about the historical disinvestment in the southern part of the county, this is what I mean. And let's go to project charge totals, slide 13 or page 13. It's FY17 through 2026, just so we can kind of see it at a glance, right? When it comes to by region disbursement at this snapshot, you're looking at 39.7% going to the north, 48.2% going to central, and 12.2% going to the south. And so it is very important to me to make sure it's very clearly articulated what and why. The what is what has been happening historically for decades. Now, project charges aren't new. They're not something myself or anyone sitting on the stage came up with. I think they were back when even Wayne Curry.
It's about 30 years.
So pretty old, right? And the sad thing is for those 30 years, the southern part of the county has been ignored, particularly for me, District 7. And I get it. There's a tension point when people that sit in these seats pay attention, care, and advocate for their residents. Because the ability to be held accountable is hard. I get held accountable by the voters, but you all get held accountable by us. And so what we are doing here is just holding you all accountable. Accountable for not investing equally in every community. Accountable to the organizations that spent money year after year with promises of being made whole and are not. This is just making you accountable because these are not your dollars. There's this narrative that the council might be disrupting your resources and your money. But this is the taxpayers' dollars. It's not ours and it's not yours. They pay taxes. Everyone, not just the north, not just the central part of the county. Everyone pays these taxes. Everyone deserves the services. And we are going to hold you accountable to delivering the services to everybody, not just who you want to serve. So now that we've gone through the historic nature of disinvestment, and we understand how project charges have not served every part of the region, I want to move on to another part of the budget that I have concerns about that hopefully we can figure out as we move into FY27.
Could I respond
was-
to your most recent equity point?
Sure.
please? Thank you. First of all, we appreciate the information that you shared. As mentioned earlier when we started our presentation, we acknowledged the fact that we saw a number of things that were not in alignment. One was the differentiation in terms of scopes of services. Another was the disproportionate numbers with regards to where funds were being appropriated. You brought up the issue about organizations and their processes, and what you'll see in the reports that we provide to the council since we've been here is the fact that we have organizations who don't even know that they receive project charges. We have to find them, run them down because they were never informed. We have organizations who did not have the appropriate paperwork and support, and we work with them to help them establish good standing certification and other projects. So there are a lot of components that go into it, but the other thing that I think is really important is, we recognize a great deal of what you've mentioned with regard to the disparity. And when you look at, and when we talk about the CIP budget and the projects since this administration, and actually the most recent under our leadership and the previous year, they started to make significant shifts in the model in which they appropriate funds. And if you look at the construction budgets throughout the counties now, it is in an equitable lens. So I don't disagree that in the past it has been like that. But I will acknowledge the fact that in FY25, there's a significant change from all the other sheets, which is what we've been responsible for under this administration, the Parks and Recreation and the Commission, which is clearly the numbers moved up in terms of appropriation of 36%, but the numbers also moved up more than any other year that I can see in the South to 24%. So I don't disagree with you. I only say that under this administration, we have understood it, watched it, and worked to create a process so that all of our communities can have the same equity and appropriation to services. Thank you.
And I appreciate that that is how you feel. But I have to be honest, and we've had this conversation offline, so I'm sure it's not new, is that it could be better for some people. And that is true. And it's why I'm not ever trying to stop Councilmember Olson or Shayla Adams Stafford or Burroughs from getting the resources that they want to their residents in their district, because I believe they deserve the services there. But I have to hone in on what's not true for my residents. And as we talked about, it's not better for the residents of District 7. And we've had that conversation. And so until it's better.
But we didn't agree on why it's like that.
Excuse me. Until it's better for the residents of District 7, this issue is not going to be fixed from my perspective. And we have to do better at getting the resources to the citizens and in a timely manner. Because there's some organizations, to your point, that are getting payback in 2025, but they had the luxury of waiting a very long time to get those resources because those were past due, almost an entire fiscal year. That's not the same reality for some other organizations. So if we want to add the context, we have to also add that context too, that these weren't timely reimbursements, timely submitted scopes. Like they have been waiting a very long time, and that's a luxury some organizations do have and some organizations don't.
Well,
but I do want to move on to this next session because I want to be mindful of everyone that's presents in time. So part of my issue was also the failure to execute priorities that were not project charges. Things that were allocated to park and planning to do. Because this idea came that why can't we try to also just work with park and planning on initiatives? Because there's always this tension point about working with outside nonprofits and organizations. So an attempt was to do that. Even though some of my colleagues said it wouldn't work, they wouldn't be executed, I did my best to put the faith that that's not so. If they say they want this opportunity, let me give them the opportunity. And so when we talk about some of those initiatives, like a young adult employment program that was not executed, that had $1 million put into it specifically in the Southern County to allow young adults 18 to 24 to have year-round employment. That wasn't executed. When we talk about the expansion of the day camp programs and partnerships specifically to extend childcare, because you run 2 childcares for employees of the county, but there was $610,000 given to make sure that we had benefits for actually the residents that maybe aren't employees of the government, but that didn't happen. When we gave funding for the Kids Bank to be the first of its kind in our country for literacy for our young ones at $100,000, that didn't happen. When we asked for the Discovery Play Lab, an indoor dynamic, inclusive play space, because we know that there's so many parents that need the parks. And in the wintertime, the parks is not the best place to be. So what would it look like to think about having indoor spaces that aligned at $500,000? That did not happen. When we asked for the District 7 market in particular, funding to look at the model that Baltimore has in the market space, a food pantry of dignity that allows people to come in and as if they're shopping in a store, that did not happen. And so the issue I have, I think, is the contrast of priorities and execution. So one of the reasons for us, when we talk about those funds would have just gone away. And we would have been starting from zero again in every budget negotiating for these same things. And these aren't things that weren't publicly promised or executed or talked about, right? These are things that we went out and said, look, community, we got this for you. This is in the budget. It is coming to your community. I told the young people in my district, wait and see, there's going to be a year-round jobs program. It's already funded in the budget. And it never happened. And my issue is that there's no way when the council takes action to rectify things like this, it is around accountability to the promises that were made to residents. So I have a few questions around the spending priorities.
Can I respond to your most recent comment, please?
Sure.
Thank you. As you mentioned, there were conversations had about some of the programs you're mentioning with previous administration. And I want to just point out a couple of things that I think is important to note. Since we've been in the roles, the director as well as the chair, it's been very important for us to create dynamics where our organizations and our community members are able to win. And so in that case, though, it's important for us to create dynamics where we're in position to execute on those things. Now, in the case of daycare programming, it takes almost a year to certify and stand up daycare facilities, to have the appropriate facility, to have the appropriate staff, all of the guidelines that it takes to create a dynamic with regard to daycare. With regard to playgrounds.
Agreed, but I want to make sure we're being then fair and accurate what we're talking about. So when that funding was allocated, that exact conversation happened in negotiation with staff, and you weren't there. So other staff would have hopefully educated you on what was agreed to in the budget. So instead of it being used in this fiscal year only towards standing up the daycare because of time, it was supposed to be used in a way to extend access so that it could be used as free summer camps, free stipends, and a program. So what I was asking for to happen is just standing up the program of application and certification, because going back to one of my issues is that I feel like people are being double taxed because they pay taxes for every single thing that you all do, and then they're charged for every program and every service.
They're not charged
They're-
for every program.
Where they're
every
charged for
service.
every camp, they're charged for every after-school activity, they're charged for the swimming classes. And I know I've asked if there's free summer swimming camps. I've been asked by your rec centers to sponsor and pay for summer camps for kids out of my office budget because they're not free.
We do provide scholarships.
Exactly, but what
for
I'm saying
our
is it's
camps,
not
for our
free.
programming.
And the point is that my goal here was to create free opportunities. That was what was negotiated. That's what was agreed upon. And it was never actualized. Because from my vantage point, and we might have a philosophical difference here, is I believe the residents have already paid when they pay their taxes. That's just personally how I feel about it. So I do think that majority of those types of services should be free for residents. But again, we could philosophically feel differently about it. So what I did was allocate funding for certain programs to be stood up in the ecosystem that exists that would be free.
I think,
Colleague, if you may, would it be all right if we took just a 5-minute recess right here? Is that okay? And just take a 5-minute recess. I know some of the other colleagues just need a quick break.
Yep, we can can I have a motion to recess?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor of 5-minute recess?
Aye.
All right, thanks.
How you doing?
Whatnots. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for allowing a quick recess. These sessions are long, and I know our council members need to have a lunch break, so I appreciate that. We are back in PHED. And I had a queue set up before I left, so Council Member Shayla Adams Stafford, and then Council Member Burrows.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Oriata. And let me just start by saying I have truly appreciated the partnership that I've had with Parks this year. As you all know, all of my kids are in all of the Parks programs. And so I spend a considerable amount of time on the fields, at the parks on the weekends and during the weekdays. And so I've been grateful to work with you on issues like changing that registration time, and additionally working with Councilman Burrows and Parks to implement our Learning Hubs program, which is so great to see it now moving into summer learning. So I just want to thank you for that partnership. And, I just really want to echo the sentiments of our chairwoman that, one priority of mine is equity and looking at our capital spending, specifically as it relates to our aquatics programs and thinking about, especially in District 5, how we're allocating those resources to the areas of highest need. And I think at a later time, we can go into greater detail about that. But what I'd love to see, I'd love to see some type of pool accessibility map. And I'm not sure if that exists, but sort of overlays that with maybe farms data, free and reduced lunch data that shows where the students are with the highest need, highest concentrations of poverty. And as I mentioned, I've talked to the chairman and the director about my concerns with accessibility, particularly in the Port Towns region. So as I mentioned, at a later time, we'll go into deeper detail about what my concerns are. And one point I wanted to mention is that I would really like for us to consider what global programs we already have in place that highlight some of our assets. As our my colleague mentioned his work in taking students abroad. Specifically, we have a partnership as a council with Cheonan City, Korea. And while we were there, we got a chance to see a lot of their youth recreational programming, their cheerleading, their taekwondo. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And so we've been thinking perhaps it's a sports youth exchange at our next trip where they can see some of our amazing, like you said, pros that come from our county and taking them abroad. And that can be a part of, our annual exchange. And I think we already have some things already in the works. So there's no need to create a new program. And so I'd love to work further on that. But again, I'd just like to echo, especially because we know specifically that in my last presentation with you, we talked about equitable spending and the concept that 20%, only 20% of the capital budget is going to the areas of the highest need. That is really where we like to see some further discussion on how we can ensure that when it comes to capital expenditures, it is more evenly distributed across all of the districts. So thank you so much.
If I can chime in for 1 second, and I thank you for the work that you're doing. I think when you start talking about free and reduced lunch and meals and all of that, I think you'll hear a wonderful presentation by James Hunt when he comes up on the agriculture programming that we're doing, and talking to the Secretary of Agriculture now in regards to our farmlands and other things that I think will get you excited. When you start looking at equitable and distribution, I think, what I really want to put in perspective is we came in at the tail end of our FY26 budget, right? So if you look at the tail end of our FY26 budget, what I've told everybody, FY27, we get to own. So looking at FY27, I think we have an opportunity to do things differently and better than our predecessors. I think we have an opportunity, as we're doing now, to have very frank conversations on expectations and transparency as we go further down the line. I think as we continue to go through this budget process, it gives us an opportunity to hear all the needs and concerns that everyone has, and allows us to be able to move forward in a real methodical way on how we're going to introduce those things so we can take advantage of it, right? Listen, at the end of the day, we want the same things that you guys want, and that is to provide the best quality service and products to the citizens of Prince George's County. I believe that Parks and Planning is doing just that. Do I think that we can do things differently and sometimes better? Absolutely. But do I think we're moving in a real smart way? I do. I do believe that looking at where we are when we came in, I see a huge change in culture and a shift in services that we have provided. I do believe that there are some things that we can now look at based on the recommendation of the chairwoman on how we need to look at distribution. I would agree that we can look at distribution more broadly to make it more fair and equitable. I think to your point of looking at the charts that you provided gives us an opportunity to course correct and now put things in place that way that not only you, but all your council members feel that they're getting the level of respect and transparency and the things that they're trying to provide back for their districts. I know that since I've been here, that we have looked at our CIP budget, our programming, and we tried to make sure that all of you all had an opportunity to weigh in and to provide input so we can get those things corrected. So I thank you for what you're doing, but just understand that we are moving in a direction that not only District 7, but every district also gets their fair share of equity coming from park and planning.
Councilman Burrows?
In the interest of time, I'll just say, we have real issues that we have to sort through. We owe it to the public to sort through them. We owe it to the government to sort through them together. And I am interested in doing that. I have a number of questions about the budget proposal, but I'll ask that they be emailed to you and you can respond to them in writing.
Thank. Yes, Councilmember Sheila Adams Stafford.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted to make my request really clear. The data that I'm asking for is essentially an overlay of pool accessibility with farms data, which is free and reduced lunch. So understanding where there are high concentrations of poverty and student inequity aligned with where there is pool accessibility. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. We've acknowledged that. We've captured it. We'll make sure we get back to you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll say, I want to end with this for this section because I know we have two other briefings, or just one other briefing today, is that in the budget proposal that's before us, I echo the sentiments of Councilmember Burrows. I have questions and I have concerns. I have concerns about where the priorities are. I feel like, for example, weekend hours are important to me. And when we have rec centers that aren't open over the weekend, I feel like that's where our resources should be spent, right? I think that our rec centers should be open on Saturday and Sunday. When I see rec centers that don't have transportation for their after school programs that exist, for buses to make sure the kids can get to and from the school, especially our elementary kids, and they have to share a bus because each location doesn't have their own, I feel like that should be the priority. And so I know that me and my colleagues have a lot of thoughts about some of the requests that are here that I don't think actually serve the residents of the county, and changes that will make sure that the tax dollars that residents are paying are felt in the direct services that they get. So I'll be working with all the council members as we move forward to ensure that they feel like that is reflected in the budget that is before us. But thank you all for attending this briefing. I'm sure we'll schedule some more. And I'd like to give us a second to transition to the next presentation. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just thank you all and close, if I may. Thank you so much. First, I really appreciate the opportunity to come before council of PHED, this committee, as well as our colleagues. Additionally, I also appreciate the fact that you all met with us in preparation for this process because, to my knowledge, it was probably one of the first times the CIP budget, comes before you all, and we had briefings prior to these meetings. But it was the first time that we were actually able to sit down with you all and our teams give full briefings of our budget prior to coming here. And so we appreciate that. The instances that were raised, we definitely are, as Mr. Burrow said, really focused on creating a win. We like to use the term win-win-win. And that first win is, of course, for our residents. The second win is for our stakeholders, in this case, our council and county government. And then the last win is for the Parks and Recreation and the commission itself. And the opportunity to be able to do that is really critically important. And I think in this budget, as the chair said, in FY27, we have an opportunity to course correct because we recognize the fact that there was a imbalanced disbursement of resources. But as we are both acknowledged, those disbursements of resources, they come from, it's driven by the council. Our reimbursement process is critically important to make sure that we have a process in place that is able to accelerate that. One of the things that we did differently from FY25 to 26 is we created a monthly reimbursement process versus before people had to wait till the end of the year, a whole 12 months. And so, the fact that we now have a process in place that was never there. And last but not least, being able to sit down at the table to work on how we implement these programs and initiatives that, the council may want and the community may want is really important because for us, as large as we are, as I mentioned, we have 630 summer camps. And in those 630 summer camps that we do throughout the county, we start planning for them a year in advance. So when we have new initiatives or programs, without question, we're gonna do everything we can to support those. In our attempt to do that, the haste, and I completely understand it, because if you look at the data, you can see where the frustration is, right? We came in on the tail end of that. And what we're dealing with is, when we dealt with the resolution that you shared with us, after that, we lost time because we didn't have an opportunity to support those, because we understood that they were being pulled so that you could get those resources out to the community. So I just want to, echo the fact that, we're here to continue to work to create wins. And we're going to do everything that we can in our organization as we demonstrated. Because if you look at FY25 versus all the other charts and the data that the gentleman provided, it is the most reimbursements that have taken place under this administration. So we're here to work with you. We appreciate it, and thank you for the opportunity.
Councilmember Burrows.
I'll be extra brief, but just to hit on what you said, I appreciate you acknowledging the historic disparities, particular to this item in the budget, project charges. And you are correct in your assessment that those dollar amounts were put forward by the county council. There's some that, park and planning sometimes will build into their base budget, but by and large, the buck stops here when it comes for that. And so I don't think, and I don't want you to feel that we are holding you two accountable for decisions of past county councils. When you look at, 2017, the disbursement amount being at 5% for districts 7, 8, and 9. 2018, 5.6% for 7, 8, and 9. 5.7% in 2019. 3.9% in 2020. 3.3% in 2021. 6.9% in 2022. Right? Then we get here, we're all excited about making a difference in our communities, and it jumps to a meager 13.6%. And then in 2024, it's 23.1%. That's been distributed funding. And then in 2025, to your point, we jump up to 24%. And so the point of tension is not park and planning choosing not to, or where these project charges go, because we know it's the council. It really is, and you acknowledge already that in the past, we would have scopes, with our meager percentages, we would proffer scopes, and they would be denied for the very same thing that groups in Councilmember Olson's district would get approved for. And so you're coming in on the tail of all of that frustration. And as just to highlight what the chair was saying, is that all of this is use or lose. If it's not used by June 30th, it disappears. It's a whole new negotiating cycle. And so what that has equated to is millions of dollars of money lost for recreational programming for the most vulnerable young people, particularly in the southern part of the county. Like, that's where we are. That is our reality. And last year you were not here, but Mr. Shapiro was here and Bill Tyler was here. And we raised this point to them. We said, you've acknowledged that the southern part of the county has been treated differently from the county level when it comes to these project charges. You've also acknowledged that internally that scopes in the north are treated differently than scopes in the south, so we lose money there. How are we going to make this right was the question that I posed to Mr. Tyler and Mr. Shapiro, and I'll send you the video link. The only way to attempt to make this equitable is to say there's been historic disinvestment here. We really have to invest here. I mean, that's the only way that could work, and not in a way that takes away from the North, but it goes without saying they win in almost every category.
If I may, Mr. Burrows, thank you for the acknowledgement. And one of the things that we did in the process is we looked at what the challenges were. the alignment of scopes, the organization vetting by upfront, right? And so part of the process for us was to create a dynamic, which is what you all already use, and we had talked about in the grant modification process in terms of you all distributing it on the council side, is to take the exact same requirements for project charge recipients so that they have them up front and they know before they appropriate it in the budget so that those project charges, those recipients are poised to be able to execute on those dollars. And then the other component is if we have, an increase of $12 million of project charges to our community, that means that based on the way that the process is laid out, that those nonprofits have to go out and secure money in advance to be able to execute on those things. So when we talk about the delays and we talk about the actual spending, because at the end of the day, what we really want to be able to do is make sure that those services are meeting the needs of our communities. And I think where we can continue to work is to prepare those nonprofits, build their capacity. We've already met with Prince George's nonprofit, the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, and a number of other organizations to help nonprofits be better suited to be able to, once they get those resources, to be able to execute them. Because we can appropriate funds and we can reimburse funds. But what's in the middle is how those nonprofits who are not able to come up with $350,000, $200,000 to even be reimbursed to execute the services. And we want to make sure that we're able to help and create the dynamics.
But
to
that's
do
a
that.
piece of it. But even nonprofits with capacity have struggled immensely through this process. So that's a piece of it. The disparate treatment is a piece of it as well, right? And so, but anything that we can do to improve, I'm excited about and want to be supportive of.
I think the biggest thing is what we're doing right now is having the conversation up front. And as we go into 27's budget, we can talk about what needs to happen so that when July 1 hits and that budget is live, then they already know that the funds are coming. They're already prepared, and we do what we can to make sure that the scopes and the contracts are in place, the work that has to be done up front, and anything that's initiative-wise that we look at and see what the timeline looks like so that we can make sure we can actually execute. We have 630 camps that are ongoing. So if we add some additional programming, we want to make sure that we have the timing and the scope. And if we need additional resources, doesn't mean that we got to additional hire staff. We just realign, our program, our resources so that we can support those things. But being able to work and be at the table up front versus in the middle or towards the tail end, it just makes all the difference in the world. So we look forward to working with you, and we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And we'll end on this one note that I have to make. I want to echo the council member's point because I don't want it to get lost that a lot of these organizations are prepared and they do know and they are ready and they do have the paperwork and they're in good standing and they're still not making through this process in a timely manner. And so I just don't want it to be a narrative of like, they don't have the capacity, they don't have the money, they don't know it's coming. I just don't want that narrative to be put out when I know personally, I meet with every single organization beforehand. I give them the sample scopes. We work through what the past reimbursements are. They're well prepared. These are national organizations, some that know what they're doing, like LIST, that has not been able to work through this program for 3 years. So I just don't want it to come off as if these are just organizations that don't know what they're doing. There is a system, either intentionally or not, that is blocking resources and the ability for these organizations and these community members and residents to get the direct service that they need. And I also want to be very clear that every priority that was put on park and planning, not project charges, because I went through things that were just asked of park and planning, were passed in the original budget. They weren't amendments. They weren't asked in the middle of the budget cycle. They weren't asked at the end of the year. They were put in the original budget and they still were not executed. And so there's an issue there of accountability that if we start at the top
Yeah,
of
but
the
it's
budget.
timing though. It's
but-
timing. We can't get something that's
Okay.
6 months and
So,
then expect
here's the
to
thing.
execute something
Here's the
in the middle.
thing.
We have
There's not a middle.
yeah. Oh, it's
Here's the
definitely the middle.
thing. Here's the thing, and we're gonna end this. We're not gonna go back and forth, but we have to be fair about this. There is when the budget cycle comes before us, right? And
We-
there's a
we plan.
hold on. I'm gonna need you to sit and listen for a second. The budget process comes before us every year, and we meet, and you weren't there, right? So
Yes, ma'am.
you weren't aware. It wasn't a gotcha moment. There were plenty of conversations and negotiation about every single ask that was in the budget. Now, if the staff did not execute it, if they didn't move it forward, that's accountability on leadership. But it wasn't a got ya moment. It wasn't a reallocation. It wasn't a move. It wasn't done in the middle of the budget cycle. Those were asks put in the budget on day one. There's asks y'all have about hiring staff in the commissioner's office, and we've had asks of raises and asks of lots of things that come down that I'm sure you're not gonna need 6 months and 12 months to figure out. If the budget cycle passes and the funding is allocated for what you all want, you can figure it out. What we're saying is there is a recreation and plan that's passed during the budget cycle. The excuse can't be that if we pass a budget cycle at the exact time it's supposed to be passed, that then you guys still can't execute it, because the idea should be the only thing you're going to do is what you thought of and what you submitted, not what was passed, not what was negotiated, not what was agreed to by the body of this council. And that's the culture that you all have to work on fixing, is you guys are proposing a budget, proposing it. It is not passed until it goes to this council. And so if you can't create systems that allow you, like every other agency in the county government can do it, but not park and planning. And if that is the issue, then there's some other things that we're gonna have to discuss and some other systems that we're gonna have to figure out. And we've been there and we've done that before. Because it has to work, that when a budget is passed, that you all follow the budget. And the excuse can't be that because it wasn't your concept or idea that you worked on before the budget was proposed and it came to us, that now you can't do it. Because then what you're saying is you're only going to do the things you propose. You're only going to do the things you propose. It doesn't matter what we say or do as the people that you're accountable to, because you're accountable to the residents who we are accountable to. So I just want you to sit with that. I don't need an answer to that. I'm just telling you that that is an unacceptable answer that we expect, like every single agency, when the budget is passed, that you figure out a way to bring it to fruition. So thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity to play.
Thank you.
Thanks. Do you want us to do it? You want us to go through the, or you want to just send questions? Yeah. Yeah. Planning. I think y'all could just give us questions on the budget and.
Yeah, we'll answer any questions you all have.
Thank you. And for time, we only had one more budget hearing. We're gonna cancel the budget hearing for planning and CAS and reschedule it. Can I have a motion to adjourn
So moved.
from someone on the committee? I need a motion from someone on the committee. So moved.
Second by Adam Stafford.
Second by Adam Stafford. Do I have all in favor of adjourning? All right, ayes have it, we're adjourned.